Some of the medieval firepower. We've got a couple of crossbows, the medieval war bow or bow, and a couple of guns at the end there as well. So we've demonstrated all of them too.
Are you ready for that?
So we'll start the show with a bang. If you care to join us, Master Hinchliffe.
Can't see anyone.
Just get yourself half a dozen arrows if you can manage that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Right, so this morning we've got 14 archers with us. When we went over to France, Crécy, Agincourt, all those sort of famous battles and periods, we didn't take 14, we took something like 4,000, 5,000 archers. So if you've got a good imagination, you know, you could sort of build it up. Bit of CGI perhaps down here, you know, a couple of dummies up on the wall and things like that. So it's a very, very, very small sample. So we're going to start, now that Master Gunner's made lots of noise to attract people out from inside the castle. We're going to start with the crossbows. These were around quite early. We've got 2.5 discrete types. The very small one in his left hand is what they call a primitive bow, or a simple bow, or a hunting bow. It's very light, very manoeuvrable. If I'm going hunting with that in the forest, I can hide it if the bailiff comes. I can run away with it. I can run chasing small game with it as well. It's really light, manoeuvrable. So we're going to shoot that one in a second. And the one he's got in his right hand is just a slight improvement on that. Instead of having to put his feet on the prong to cock it, he's got a stirrup to put his foot in. So it's a bit more, there you go, look. A little bit more sophisticated. And then this one, sorry, I didn't mention the strength of these. This has got a draw weight of around about 80 pounds. So if you can imagine trying to lift 80 pounds off the floor, that's what he's doing there. This one's about £100, I think, isn't it? Yeah, about £100. This one is about 120. But they will go, with this piece of equipment, you could wind these up to about £500. That's a lot of power, a lot of energy. So he's going to demonstrate this one now. This is called, it's a rack and gear. It's called a Cranikin. And it gives a terrific mechanical advantage to him loading it. As you can see, takes a bit longer. Although it's pretty quick actually, it takes a bit longer than these to cock. This is usually done behind a shield or what they call a pavise, because they did tend to come from Italy and that sort of area with the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Parva?
Parva, that's it, it came from Parva. So they're called parvises. We have got one, a blue one at the top of the field there. Normally they would be hiding behind one of those. While they were loading and getting it ready. So we'll have a go with, if you have a go with the little one. Usually I shoot this one, but I've got a bad back. I can't even pull that. Oh. Right, he this time is going to try and hit one of the targets, aren't you, sir?
I'll try.
Right. So hands up. Who thinks he's going to hit one of the targets? Hang on a second. Nobody. Oh, 1, 2, 3. His fan club's here today, obviously, yes. Go on then, when you're ready. Oh, look at that. Technical hitch there. Try again, sir. Just wait a minute, Andy. Yeah, I've got it. Hang on. Yeah. When you're ready, yep. Right. Try the other one, see if that's any better. The beauty of these as a weapon is they could be mass produced in a factory, given out afternoon's training, and you're pretty good with it. So they're quite a useful bit of kit, quite expensive. Right, when you're ready. Oh, much better. And this one, he's wound it up with a Cranikin. See what he can do with it. Oh!
You'd have him ducking.
They'd be worried. You'll notice we're using blunt bolts or quarrels today with big rubber ends on, the same as the arrows. Yeah, thank you. Purely for safety, of course. We don't want to hurt anybody. All those marauding troops in the woods down there, we don't want to hurt them. Right, so that's the... Oh, going to go for another one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay, last one on the crossbow, and then we'll get the bows out.
I am going to hit that target.
Ooh, so close.
They were mainly bodkins, the short bodkins, and the Type 16s, those. So those would be the two armour-piercing arrows that we use mostly. But as he said, for horses, you've got the swallowtail and the broadhead. So those would have been the most they had. All the time they had pages and young boys bringing up barrels and boxes and giving them to the men. All the time they were on the move, every archer would have 24 of those or those in his quiver. You go into Leeds Armoury, bless them, they've got a very good Agincourt archer there, but he's got his arrows the wrong way round. I've told them about it, but they haven't changed it, it's still there. They've got the arrows that way round. And I've got a quiver here somewhere, and I don't know where it is. I don't know where it is. The quiver is a bag of canvas about that long, tied at both ends, and holding in the middle is a leather cord, a leather disc with 24 holes in it. Right? Now you can push the arrows through those holes that way. Yeah? But you cannot pull them back that way, can you? So they archers, and there's actually paintings of this, lots of them, and they still don't see it. The arrows were that way round, so you could draw it. That will go through those holes. Right, so go into Leeds Armoury and just tell them. There you go, John.
Scared.
We grossed him out.
I'm going to probably gross out Mum as well.
Okay.
Now, Peter's going to be my Prince Harry. Hello.
You'll have to stretch your imagination.
Bow down. He was only about that. No, it was about that way then. And he was in a battle, the Battle of Shrewsbury, against Henry Hotspur. He was 15, just about turned 16 years old. He was wearing a helmet like these, but he must have had the visor open at this particular time, because it glanced off of another night and it hit Harry there. Ow. And it went right through to the back of his head. Now they know it must have glanced off of somebody, because if it didn't glance off somebody, it would have gone right through and come out the back. Anyway, he was like that. And believe it or not, that 16-year-old boy carried on fighting all the way through that battle with that sticking out of him. Now, at the end of the battle, the barber surgeons would come along and they would extract arrows and things to make sure that it was safe. There's our barber surgeon. He'll be able to tell you about this, and he might even have the arrow extracted there. I think he has. But this was in there. Now they went into panic mode, so they pulled.
Oh no.
And they pulled the shaft out, but the arrowhead, that is still buried in the back of his head.
Oh wow.
Can you imagine that? They've got to get it out, otherwise he's going to suffer from septicemia and die. Now, if I shot him in the chest, the barber surgeon has arrow spoons. You'll be able to see them over there, and you can pass them along the arrow into his flesh, cover up the arrowhead, and pull it out. Right? So even if he's got a barbed one, or one like that, you can see the different wounds, so you can choose your spoon. But he cannot get that through the hole in his head, because it's through his skull. So, they sent for a barber surgeon called John Bradmore, Now John Bradmore was also a locksmith, so he was a very skilled man at making small metal things. And he'd invented a tool that went inside that shaft. Can you see that that's tapered? So, like, do you know how a raw plug works? It goes inside and then expands.
Yeah.
Well, that's what he'd done. He'd made a screw, so he turns the screw inside there and expand it out. But he couldn't get it in the hole, and it took him a couple of days to make this thing anyway. Now, if I'd pinched Peter, he'd go, oh, wouldn't he? And his face would screw up. Now, if he'd had that pain for 3 days, his face would have all been frozen up on that side, and it would never ever have been released. All the muscles would have been solid there. But this barber surgeon was so clever, he massaged his face, his shoulders and his neck, and he never got any muscle freeze in his face. But he's still got to get that out. So eventually he makes this tool, and you'll see it on Chris's table. He put it in the hole, and now he's got to find that arrow in there. So he's got to dibble around until he hears the metal scraping on the metal. Can you imagine what that felt like? Eventually he opened it up inside there. Now that has started to grow and heal around the arrowhead after 2 days or 3 days. So he has to release it. And then he slowly pulled it out. That boy never had any muscle freeze in his face. He never had any infection in that wound because all of the herbs and things, he'd cured that hole and that wound. And that's 15th century surgery. Now, I lived in a little village called Mitchett. You've never heard of it, have you? But that's the home of the Army Medical Corps. And I went in the museum there, and pride of place, right, the first thing you see is that tool. If you'd like to go over there to Chris, he'll show you it.
Your tooth out. Do you need any more coming out? I've got
A couple of wobblies.
there's some wobblies, you want them out?
Oh, what's that?
Look at it, it's properly shaped. It's not
Mine for £1.
Yeah.
So these are all the tools that are
These
used
are
to...
instruments, surgical instruments, and barbering instruments as well. I'm a barber surgeon and dentist as well.
Right.
Can I ask where they get that name from, barber surgery? Because I feel like I've probably been told it before.
It's because surgery was very risky at the time. It wasn't as risky as people think. You did generally expect to survive surgery, and the Guild of Barber Surgeons records show that they had more than 75% complete success rate on their operations, which means that you would expect. And barber surgeons were actually sued because their patients died by their relatives, which showed that they were expected to live.
Yeah.
So, but it was expensive to have that done, and obviously for most people, they don't get to do it very often. So you have to make a living some other way. So you cut people's hair, and it actually started off the other way around. When they first decided something needed to have an operation, you needed something cutting out of your body. Who are you going to go and see? The person in the village who can keep their blades nice and sharp and clean, and have a steady hand working around human flesh. So barbers became the first surgeons. And then it became a case of barber surgeons. You would do a long apprenticeship as a surgeon, but you would also have to work as a barber just to make a living.
Can't carry on to have it. So would they have any qualifications or training?
It's an apprenticeship.
It's an apprenticeship.
You would be examined by the masters of the guild. Yeah, it's a 7-year apprenticeship. You'd be examined by the masters of the guild in order to discern whether you're fit to practice. Of course, that doesn't mean everyone who works as a barber surgeon was a fully qualified guild member.
Right.
There would be some people who just knew how to cut things out of people's bodies, cut out foreign bodies and patch people up. But a proper barber surgeon, I'd say, 7-year apprenticeship and an examination by the guild masters.
Oh. you notice we're running out of arrows. And the wonderful thing about arrows is once you've used them, you can go and pick them up and use them again. Unlike the later developments of the bullet, once you've shot it, it's gone. Arrows we can go and collect again. So archers fast, collect please, quick as you can. Now, a good English archer should be able to shoot 12 arrows in a minute. He should have, if he's any good, 3 arrows in the air at any one time. One just landing, one at the top of his arc, and one just leaving the bow. Keep that going for, quite 10 minutes, quarter of an hour. How long does a battle last? Half an hour, 2 hours? So not 40, you've seen how many arrows we've used, but if you've got 4,000 archers shooting 12 arrows a minute, how many arrows a minute is that? No? It's about 48,000, isn't it?
Horrendously violent creatures.
Yeah.
They are like, they're like a Leeds fan when they lose. Right, okay, so stabby thing goes in, that one comes straight back out. Okay, shooting arrows at that, it's going to take a lot of energy for this to go through the chain. Right, it's got to split a lot of links, right? Because so in that case it becomes a bit pointless. Shooting targets, because I want this to come straight back out. Right, if I shoot that into somebody,
Fair enough.
I've got to pepper them with holes. But if it will slow them down, they will not be running towards me and trying to kill me. Okay, so that's just a straightforward part. Make it longer, absolutely brilliant. That will go in further and nastier. Right, this is a set of holes to this tip, so it will punch its way through those. It only has to split one single link. Okay, and it has plenty of power to split that link unless you're too far away. Right. In which case, right, so still not the best. Best armour against this is either full plate, and it has to be solid full plate, decent quality stuff. This is never going through it, and the wood will shatter of the thing. You might stab them with shrapnel. Paddy jack, which I put down there. 2 tubes of linen cloth, absolutely packed with as much of anything as I could find. In this case, there's loads of bits of fleece and wool. There's horsehair in there. There's bits of old cloth, rags, you name it. It's stuffed in there. That hits it, punches its way through the front and then twists because it's spinning. And that twisting will actually draw all of the energy out of the arrow. It will not get through to the back. I've tried that. Apparently, if you put the chain over the front, it stops it spinning and that will allow it to punch straight through. I've not tried that. That was my target for this weekend. I don't think it's going to happen. But, okay, so that goes into you. He's run away. Goes in, comes straight back out. Okay, brilliant. It's got its purposes, particularly target shooting or distance shooting at people. If I've got my Frenchman, I really want to be hitting him with one of those because that's going to go in. It's not going to come back out. Right? Or if it does, it's going to cause an awful lot of minor irritation on the way, and our Frenchman is going to go in the way that Frenchmen do. Right? If they do that, there's 2 things to do. First is to slit his throat, second is to take his wallet. Unless you're feeling cruel, in which case the first is to take his wallet and the second is to slit his throat. Right? Then you can recover the arrow. If it's one of your boys that's been shot with one of these, depends where they're shot. They're either goosed. You've either got to cut the thing up, cut the shaft off and leave it in there, and it's just going to keep on cutting away at the insides. You don't want to be pulling it back out without doing some serious surgery, which on a medieval battlefield was not a nice thing to do. It's not a nice thing to do in a modern battlefield, but that's going to really hurt to pull it out. It's actually quite often less painful to push that all the way through the body and then snap the end off and draw the arrow shaft out, and then hope like heck that there was nothing nasty on there that poisons your mate to death. Right? Okay. Where's the sun?
I got the right.
Right. Okay. You done it. Well done. Works, doesn't it? That's called a fid, by the way. Okay. Right. So that's not for a Frenchman. That's for a Frenchman's horse. That's going to make a horse mightily miffed. Right. Where it's going to cause the horse to rear, to kick, to bite, to go generally mental, which means that you now have one of your people suddenly in the middle of the army. Right, horses tend to have rich people on them. Right, rich people are usually the ones in command because they're rich, not because they're any good at commanding, but because they're rich. Right, in which case, horse is going to dump said person on the ground and be one of your allies, which gives you a big advantage. It's not a nice thing to do to a horse. It makes it all cross, and then the meat's no good. This is a rigging cutter. shoot that at a sail, causes a rip in the sail. Sail then, when you've got a rip, the rip extends and extends because the end points of that rip have all of the force that should be on the rip, right? And then it just turns the sail into 2 pieces of canvas that are not pushing your boat along because it spills the wind out of it technically. Your boat slows down, hopefully it's a French boat, we're going to stop it, we're going to beat everybody up, we're going to take the ship captive and as a prize, and we are going to take the wine and sell it back to the French, because although we're constantly at war with France, right, or certainly just before a war or just after a war, you know, we do an awful lot of trade with that country. It can also cut ropes. If, as it spins, it hits a rope square on, and that rope is under tension, that will cut a rope. And that's my arrow tips. There are other people that have better arrow tips and shinier arrow tips and know far more about arrow tips and arrows and archery that will quite happily talk to you further up there. I might have taken too much of your time unless there's something else we haven't talked. We've talked about ropes.
Yeah.
We've talked about chain.
Yeah.
We've talked about arrows. That's it, I'm done.
It gets hit, and you actually look through that bit. You put on it on if you want. Yeah.
He doesn't bother, does he?
Well, I was busy talking, I didn't know.
Man, you can only do one thing at once.
No, that's it. Can I do one thing at once? Sorry, and that's
So wold is quite complicated.
put it on.
You need, it was
Yeah, you want to pull the straps out first, though.
so you need a metre square growing of woad.
You mean you
for a
got too
metre
big
of
of it?
fabric to dye, so we need a lot. So what they would have used about 20 barrels.
You've got to be brave.
It's like, a bit like a spinach leaf. That's
And then you would look, that has to come down.
It's really bright green.
Yeah.
And what they would do, they would
I can see.
gather it
And
when
this
it was
bit
ready to be gathered. Chop like
goes under the
pestle
chin.
and mortar.
So that's what you're looking
And then
for.
can you talk with that?
Well, any woman can talk, matter what. Come on now. I'm feeding you lines here, you know what I mean? And because it fastens at the back, so that's what you meant. Yeah.
And
then it's on your
brown.
armour,
But
and then-
it depended on the people that dyed it. It could go.
And that, and you did ask me, so I will show you what you wear.
Take a photograph.
It needs
You need to take a photograph.
but they knew.
Quick.
When,
No, just hang on.
when it would do. And then when it were ready, you put the fabric in.
So you wear this on your body. So it's metal plates covered with.
Is this for ladies?
That's for men. Yeah, you've got a volunteer.
We don't have two.
A volunteer. Yeah.
It'll be a perfect fit.
And then that straps to your arm.
Oh, it's not for your boobs. It's for your shoulders.
It's for your shoulders.
For your shoulders. So, and then you've got your helmet on top of that, so it's heavy going, isn't it?
Yeah. Just a bit.
And you, of course, you're not just standing, you're fighting on the spot with it, so. Yeah. That's called a brigandine. That's top at range armour, by the way, brigandine.
Fantastic.
Further for the relic, this is part of our household symbol. So we're all part of the Earl of Warwick's household. We report into him, and his symbol is the bear and ragged staff. So that's the ragged staff from his emblem. Wings for the angel. If, like Mary, you want a baby, you might want a fertility symbol. Definitely. And then York Rose, because we're part of the household of York, and the feather is going back to York. We've got some donations here. You can see the medieval money, including the halfpenny, literally a penny cut in half. But they would also donate other things of value, so the pearl rosary and also beeswax. It's the best form of light at this point. It burns brightly, it burns sweetly. Most people are using rush lights, which are literally just rushes dipped in animal fat. It smells bad, it smokes, it's really quite dim light. Christ is the light of the world, so you want really good light for your churches. Churches are going through a lot of candles. But bees only produce so much beeswax, so it's quite expensive, so it's quite a generous thing to donate. And if you've come on pilgrimage to ask for prayers of healing for something that's hurting, because medicine's not what it is now, you might give your beeswax in the shape of the thing that's hurting as a reminder of what your donation's about. A map of the world. So this is based on Hereford Cathedral's Mappa Mundi. The original is enormous. It's a great big wooden panel. It's beautifully coloured. If you ever get the opportunity to see it, it's a fabulous piece of art. This is a really crude representation of it, but it's not a map of geography, it's a map of philosophy. So Jerusalem is the centre of their world. Christ has dominion over everything. England is down here at about 7 o'clock, and you can see Rome. And the feather has come from Jerusalem via Rome across Europe back to England and is on its way to York. So if you wanted to go on your own pilgrimage and travel that journey and trace the path, you could do. If, like Mary, you're pregnant and you're slightly concerned about what's going to happen because childbirth is the most common form of early death at this point in history, when you die, everybody goes to purgatory. It's not a particularly nice place. It's a bit like a waiting room waiting for judgment. If you're coming to a shrine like this, you're obviously hoping to go to heaven, so you want to spend as little time in purgatory as possible and get to the good stuff. An indulgence reduces your time in purgatory. So you buy the indulgence from me, you say the prayer, worst case happens when you have your baby, you don't make it, you spend less time in purgatory and you go through to heaven a bit quicker.
Shooting, yes, firing or shooting guns often is a two-man job, two-person job. Just before he fires the gun, notice they fire a gun with fire, we shoot or loose arrows, there's no fire involved. Before he does that, he will shout, "Have a care." And the reason for that is, in the Middle Ages, when guns had just been developed in Europe in the 1300s, they did have a tendency to explode occasionally because the engineering technology wasn't mature. So he will actually shout, "Have a care," so that everybody around him can step back out of the way. So he will say, "Have a care, give fire." So the one he's loading now, you can see how it's, I'll sit down so you can see in this corner. The one you can see, he's got a little canister of gunpowder, pre-measured dose, so it's quick to put the correct amount in there. That's a copper container because copper doesn't spark if it catches something, again to keep it safe. This one is called a hand cannon because it is developed from the cannon, if you like. Cannon is Latin for tube, which is all a gun is. So they'll call cannons, tubes, pipes. It's also called a hook gun. If you look at the front of the barrel, at the bottom it's got a little hook on it. The reason for that is because it's quite a big bore gun, you put a big piece of stone or lead or shot or whatever in there, projectile. You can see the diameter of it on with the rammer he's got. There's a lot of recoil with that one.
What did it with the Bible? Sheets from the Bible.
He's what did it? Is it Revelations?
It will be a revelation if it fires, yeah. So when it fires over, it's going, hallelujah! Are you ready?
So you would hook it over a wall or something, or even a pavis to hold that recoil. If you can still hear me, in the early medieval periods there weren't many around. Back of Cressy, I believe there was some. We believe there was some guns similar to that, late 1300s. And of course, most people that were fighting were from the farms, from the countryside, because most people didn't live in the countryside. So the loudest thing that he'd ever hear would be thunder, lightning, acts of God. So when this thing came up, breathing, fire, brimstone, the smell of it, the sight of it, the noise of it, and then watching some of your fellow men just falling over dead, apparently, because they're used to swords and bills and arrows, you can see them coming. But these things, you don't see them coming, so they thought they were the work of the devil quite often. So there's a lot of psychological warfare going on as well as the physical, activity. This one
This was from about 1350. some guns like this were present on the battlefield at the Battle of Cressy. Not many. Most of the people there were archers. About 80% of them were archers. But they were present.
And you notice with this one, the loading is exactly the same if you can find it. This has got a smaller charge in it, it's a smaller bore, smaller barrel, but the process is the same.
Big guns they use a scoop, which you turn. And for little guns, they just use a powder on the right hand side.
So he's put the gunpowder in, then he'll put another couple of pages of the Bible in there.
St Paul's letter to the Romans, so he's going to head west.
And after he put that wadding in, he would put a gun stone or lead shot or anything else projectile he could use, and then he would wad it again to stop that falling out.
And my assistant's going to fire this gun for the first time. I'm going to load it. He's going to fire it.
So there is a little hole called a touch hole in the top of that barrel, and he will put some finer ground gunpowder on that, and that will burn down through the hole into the main charge, and then it will light. That's a match cord in his hand, used to light it.
Fire!
And his third gun is from around about 1450. As you can see, it's starting to look more like what we would nowadays call a rifle.
This one is called Arquebus. It's a copy of one from the Royal Armoury in Leeds. Just a moment, please. Leeds, Yorkshire. I'm going to get it in when you have a chance. As you can see, it's starting to look more like a conventional rifle. But it's still very basic. The basic principle as the other guns is the same. This you can fire on the battlefield on your own. So I don't mind either way.
This one does have quite a neat little addition to it. It has got on top of the touch hole, it has a little raised piece, a pan, where it puts the gunpowder, and that has a sliding lid over it, so that we can use it even if it's raining. Because of course, if you can't cover the gunpowder, it could get wet, not light, and be useless. But also, you know, if it's very windy, stops it blowing away.
If I was to fire it on my own, I would put some gunpowder in, get the matchstick, and fire it that way. Okay? You can fire these that way or that way. So it's up to you. Fire it under your arm if I was. Okay? And keep your face like that. There we go.
Get ready, Ren. Get ready.
Look here. Give fire!
Hey.
Have opportunity for one more gun to be refired. So do you want the 1410 hook gun, pole gun? Do you want the 1350s hand cannon, or do you want the Arquebus from about 1460?
1410.
The big one!
Well, it just so happens that I have a charge ready for this.
They're a little indecisive, this lot.
Okay.
when he did that. For some reason, he's
very hard. Don't forget, when it goes off, hallelujah. Spread the word.
Have a care.
This is called slow match. It's rope soaked in saltpetre. It burns the smoulders very hot.
He's going to shout, have a care first, and then I'll do it. Put it in my ears, what's he said? Has he shouted have a care yet?
Have a care! Give fire! Hallelujah!
It would appear there's a bit of a good going on there. It's prepared as delivery men are beating up their own captain. Having fun beating up their own captain by the looks of it.
Keep the line!
Oh, that was a nice hit from the swordsman on their captain. I think that's at least 2 hits. I don't think they're bothered anymore. It looks like it's a bit more of a clutch match down the end there. Leo, what's your match? He's by himself. He's got a sword to distance. Rather than try and bore you with what they've got, I will show you what they have. Okay, form one array on me.
I had my glory yesterday.
Come on, one array on me. I normally have a long pole, but I've forgotten to bring it, so what I will do, rather than use a flag, is I will use my sword. This particular type of sword is known as a hand and a half. It's called a hand and a half because the handle has enough space for a hand and a half. Don't be confused with that is a pommel, they're the quillions. This type of sword, it being sharp from about that point down, and blunt there. However, the blade is not the only particular part of the sword you can use. Use the pommel, and to pommel someone, you hit the pommel. You can also use the 2 blades to swing down. You can catch them at some points and pull them down as well. Okay, different types of troops. Okay, starting from the highest to the lowest. Knights, if you like to dress forward, 2 knights will dress forward. And we've got another end. Okay, there we go. We have 3 different types of knights in 3 different types of harness. Down the far end, we have got a decisively German-looking harness, nice and pulled in at the stomach, lots of fluting for strength. He's wearing what's called a Savile, full greaves, and his locks down. So it completely covers his face and completely encases him. He's got a chainmail skirt, what we have called voiders under his arms, so he's completely protected. In the centre, we go to a different country. This is Italian. This is very, very Italian. As you can see, his is all pulled in with flutes and roots to make it strength. This one is large and round. The reason it's large and round is because it deflects better.
And not because he's fat.
What he's wearing on his helmet is a type of helmet called an armet. Very similar to a Savile, it has the face that comes down. The only difference is it's completely enclosed and protecting. He also still has the thin visor to see through. And the knight at the top is it's a bit of a mishmash of different styles. It's a little bit earlier than the German. We can tell that by the folds, the way that the folds come down to a point, as opposed to being separated into 2 parts like the earlier period. Sorry, the earlier knight I showed you. Still has fluting,
So it has the strength, but it's got hints of different areas.
So it's English?
Yes, it's mostly English. There are three main armour components in the 15th century. You've got your German styles, your Milanese Italian styles, and what's more coming more recently, or more discovered recently, is an English style. It's known as English style, but it's more of an English, Burgundy, Flemish style, so it's from the Low Countries. I think Belgium that way is where we did most of our trade. So they're the high-ranked knights. If you want to kill one of these, hitting them with a sword is effective, but it will take a while. There we go again. Nice little...
Useless!
However, there are ways around it. Does anyone have a little dagger?
Touch to me at the minute. Hold it.
A dagger is the more effective way. There are two ways that will kill him quick and one way that will make his eyes water. The blades for these are normally really thin and really sharp. If you punch up under the armpit, you can loosen the rings and get the blade through. The back of the neck, push it in, sever the back of the neck. Through the visor, push it in, you can really get the gristle in there.
See you through the week, that attack well.
Or, the one that will really make his eyes water is up. He will know about that.
And I'll bleed to death in 6 seconds.
And he'll cry for them whole 6 seconds. Okay, slightly lower down, but still quite high. We've got troops that have got what's known as brigandines on. If you've got brigandine, can you step forward?
I have got a brig.
Under here, he's got a lovely blue velvet one, which you can't see. This is a earlier style of one. Big plates, but it opens at the sides. Yeah, again, another one. Side opening, big plates, completely covers it up. And another earlier, no, this is a later one, but it's earlier than the one that I'm wearing, because this one comes really far down. If you can see mine is made of lots of small plates. So whereas his is big, it does protect. Mine's small plates, gives me a little bit more manoeuvrability, but also allows me to fasten it from the front. All the plates inside are tinned and riveted to the coat. They are very effective. They're actually a little bit lighter, and they would have been cheaper to manufacture because you can use offcuts of metal, whereas the best plates would have to be beaten out into one piece. Most of the troops have got some other form of armour on, be it full set of arms or a partial set of arms. Helmet-wise, we do seem to start having a couple of different types of helmet. We've got a kettle helmet, such as this lad here, and a barbute at the end there. That's known as a Corinthian barbute because it's been inspired by the early Greek ancient warriors. Okay, do you want to reform your raise? The rest of the troops have very little armour. Some have full legs, some have what's known as a placard to protect the stomach, but all of them, if you step forward, the remaining troops are wearing what is known as a padded jack. This is a coat. It's made up, it can be made up of two ways. It can be made up of layers and layers of linen and wool, or it can be made of 2 layers of linen and stuffed with wool. These still exist. People still wear these today. There's a gent over there that's carrying one. Another one has got one on his belt. They've developed, become thinner and thinner. In English and a more French feminine word, they've become a jacket. So your jackets are just modern forms of these. Reform your array. Right. Do knights want to drop out and get called?
Have you got somebody for the bottom of your field for this drill with the kids? I'll do it.
Okay, if you want to stay and do it.
Don't mind, I can stay.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to march them back and forth for a little bit, go through each of the commands that I'm about to teach you. Then when we've done that, I will bring the kids up and we'll have a go at teaching them. Okay? So we'll just start now with the troops, and we'll see how things go. Okay, so you really want to pay attention for this? Carry! About your face. Knee bend. Stand. About your face. Oven tray. Throne. 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 Frank. From the left, form 2 rays. First man run to the back. From the left, man on the left, run behind. That's you understand, yeah. Okay, now you're into a raise. Oven tray. Okay, this is how troops would have fought in the 15th century. Multiple arrays. You'd have probably had archers in there as well, or they could be on the flanks along with gunners. They will advance steadily, knee bend, until they make contact with the troops. It makes easy stand. From this position, they can either switch from front ranks to back ranks as they die, and they're nicely compacted in. Which means if the enemy do try and get in, or horses try to get in, one person can stop, the other person can kill. It's really effective. If they are stuck in the position and they do end up with horses, they've got a position called prepare for horse. This makes a nice spiky hedgehog. It stops animals coming in and horses coming in because they're not stupid. They don't like running into spiky things that's going to hurt. Stand. Form 1 array. That way. Carry. By your face. Knee bend. Stand. Okay, by your face. Ground. If you're coming across another build block and are outnumbered, you can use a position called the wedge. The Duke of Oxford particularly was good at this. He used it very efficiently at the Battle of Bosworth against the Earl of Norfolk. He's run away. I was just about to use him. Okay, you've got your front man. Form wedge on him. This makes a V force. The front man does not want to go in. They're going to push him in. If he dies, he stays on his feet. And they still use him as a shield. Yeah. Yeah, you can advance. Knee bend. Stand. Before you get too close. Okay.